Hello and welcome back to Try Your Hand. So today we're going to be doing some hand embroidery. This here is a more complicated version of what we're doing. What we will be doing is we will be outlining a little rabbit, a little fox, and a tree. Though of course I'm going to show you how to do the more complicated version of this, which is to fill in the tree with stitches that look like bark. And of course you can also do this with the fox and with the bunny rabbit. Today you are going to be learning 3 different stitches. Okay, so why don't we get into the supplies? In the kit, you will have everything that you'll need except for scissors. You will need scissors to cut some thread. Though, let's go through the supplies here. Your kit comes in a plastic bag wrapped in ribbon. The first thing that I've pulled out here is the pattern that we're going to be doing. And then the next thing we have is a piece of cloth, an embroidery hoop about 4 inches in diameter. We have a water-soluble pen, a needle, either in this kind of container or one of those little plastic sauce containers. And then we will go through the thread. So we have some dark brown or reddish brown for the tree, a yellow color for the rabbit, an orangey color for the fox, and then we also have a grayish, silvery white for the moon, and then I did give you some green to put in the tree or in the fox or in the rabbit if you so desire. Of course, if you wanted to do this but you didn't sign up in time, this is a nice list of supplies that you can go out and get to make a project very similar to this. I have for you your template that we're going to be using. It is in a circle. There are 2 different lines. The outer line is where you want to cut on. That inner line is kind of where you don't want to put any stitches, so you can trace that onto your cloth. So once we cut out our template, what we're going to be doing is tracing the template onto our piece of cloth. The marker is water soluble, meaning that it'll wash out with some water, so you just have to put a little bit of water on any marks and it comes out right away. So what I did to do this was take some tape and tape it to the back of my cloth. Your cloth doesn't really have like a front side or a back side, so really you can tape it onto whatever. But you just kind of want to tape it on there under where you're going to be tracing and then flip it over, and through the cloth you should be able to see the lines. If not, what you can do is put it up against a window or even put it up to like the lights on your ceiling to kind of get those lines to come through and then trace it from there. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just quickly, with the power of fast forward, tracing all of my lines. So now that we have traced our drawing onto our piece of cloth, we will be taking our embroidery hoop and putting our cloth into the hoop. So to do that, you take the 2 pieces apart. There is a little screw at the top of your embroidery hook that you would unscrew. You would take then the inner part of your embroidery hoop and put that under your cloth. Once you do that, you want to center the drawing onto that circle and just make sure that the drawing is centered and that your needle can get into the places where you drew. Then after that, you want to put the outer ring and put that on top of the lower ring and start twisting the top knob. For yours, you'll probably have to hold the little bolt on the other side and then twist. And then from there, you want to make sure that your piece of cloth is taut in the embroidery hoop. So that means that you will be pulling on the cloth as you're tightening just to make sure that it's taut and that your drawing isn't going to get warped. You do know that it's good to go when it starts making a little drum noise. Now that we have our pattern set, we need to get the thread ready. So you do have different colors of embroidery thread in your kit. What we're going to do first is the tree. So I'm taking the dark brown or dark red color and I am going to pull 3 strings out of that embroidery thread. Off of the bundle of thread that you have, you can cut however much you want. The longer your thread is, the more work it is, because then you're pulling with your arm quite far away from you. But also with how long it is, it means that you have to rethread much less. So you can cut it at whatever length. It doesn't really matter. Then what you want to do is you want to take your needle and take that little bunch of 3 threads and thread it into the needle. I usually do this by like licking and pressing the ends and making it flat and stiff, and then inserting the thread through the eye of the needle. I also try to cut off any like ragged edges. That way all of my threads are going in at once. Now that we have our needle threaded, we can finally get started on actually embroidering. So to do that, I'm going to insert my needle. In this case, I'm not going to knot the ends. What I'm going to do is just kind of leave a little tail and then hold it down with my finger for the first couple of stitches. After that, it really doesn't unravel, so you don't have to do knots. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle again a little further along the line on the side of my tree here and pull. Again, I don't want to pull too hard, and I want to make sure that I'm holding on to that thread at the bottom there. So once I'm done with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle through the bottom a little bit away from where my stitch was previously, and then what I'm going to do to insert my needle again is to go back to where my previous stitch was, and right behind where my needle went down, I'm going to insert my needle and pull through. This stitch is called the stem stitch, and it makes a really nice fine line that doesn't look chopped up or broken up. So it looks like a continuous line. This is much nicer looking than, let's say, a back stitch because of that. So again, what we're going to be doing is we are going to put our needle through a little bit away from where we had our previous stitch. We're going to insert our needle, pull through, and then we are going to go back to our previous stitch and then go behind where we put our needle down before and insert the needle down there and pull through. Now that you're done with that side of the tree, we can then move on to the other branches. So for this, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is insert your needle again downward so that the string is coming from the back of your embroidery. And then when you're going to insert your needle back up, just do it on the next line. And then from there, you continue on doing what you were doing before. A good tip for going around the curves of the tree is to make smaller stitches the more curvy an area is. The reason for this is because if you make long stitches, they're very straight and make it look as if it's like digitized or something like that. So with the smaller stitches, you have more control to make it look as if those little tiny straight lines are then a singular line that is curving. You continue on doing the stem stitch on all of the rest of your branches until you have finished with that. Then we will move on to the different stitch that we're going to learn, which is the French knot. We are going to prep our needle with the color that the bunny rabbit is going to be. With this thread, we are also going to be splitting it in half, and then we can get started on the next technique. We are starting a new area with a new thread and a new color. In my section here, I did not put a knot at the end of my string, though in this case, with doing this technique, the French knot at the end of your thread, because that makes what we're going to be doing next much, much easier. We're just going to stick our needle anywhere in the bunny tail. Then we are going to wrap the thread around the needle 3 times. Here I'm doing this in this slightly weird way, but that's only because I was trying to show the camera what I was doing. But it's actually easier just to kind of put your project down and wrap your needle with the hand that's holding the hoop. Then what you do once you wrap the thread around the needle is that you try and hold the string not super taut, but just so that it's not loose, and insert the needle into the thread and then start pulling down on that needle, and as you're pulling, what you want to do is just make sure that those little knots are staying in place on the thread. Once you kind of get to where you're holding it with your thumb and your pointer finger, you want to let go and then keep on pulling. You should have like a very small little knot that kind of looks like a hair bun. Then you want to continue to do this until that entire little circle of the bunny tail is filled. In this case, you don't really need to worry about placement because all curls are kind of random. So what I did with mine was just I found any empty spots and I did a little French knot in that area. And that's what you can do too. Once we have finished the bunny tail, we're going to do the outline of the bunny. I would do this the exact same way that we did the tree, which is the stem stitch. Now that we are done with the bunny, we are going to move on to the other two aspects of the illustration that we're going to embroider, the fox and the moon. Both of them are done just like the bunny and just like the outline of the tree, which is doing the stem stitch, which I already demonstrated. So you can go back and see those to do them. One thing to keep note of while you are doing the moon is that you don't really want to go over any of your branches because in the picture, the moon is shining from behind the tree. So that means that when you have your needle like on the underside of your hoop, what you're going to do when you get to those branch parts is that you're going to then skip them and then insert your needle on the other side of that branch and then keep moving forward. We are now getting to the more difficult part of this project. Of course, you don't have to do this if you don't wish to. You can just outline your items and be done. But if you want to give your animals or your tree some texture, what you can do is the satin stitch, which I will be now showing to you. So for this stitch, really what you're doing is just randomly inserting one stitch all over the place. That's pretty much the way to do it. The reason that we aren't stitching right next to our other stitches is because it pulls on the cloth weird for some reason. It's really annoying. I don't like it when that happens, but this technique, what I'm doing here, does help with that a lot. So, as you can see, I'm inserting my needle just in random places, going in the direction that I want the fur of the fox to go. The body of the fox, I want the fur to go, up and down. So I'm just making stitches that go up and down, and I want those stitches to be irregular. So you make some stitches long, some stitches short, and then you move up with that color. And then I would take a different color and then start all the way over. So I would start up from the bottom where I started here and then just fill in those spaces that I left with the previous color, again irregularly. So some small stitches, some big stitches. Then you would go in again, maybe with the first color, maybe with a different color if you wish, with your needle, and it makes this like really cool texture for not only your fox or your rabbit, but your tree as well. So really, after you outline all of the items in the picture, you are done. This is just an extra step if you had fun doing this embroidery. You can do this satin stitch on all of your little animals, and it makes it look like they have fur or the texture of bark, and it makes it look really cool. So with that, we are now done. Though I am going to show you how to finish off the edges of our cloth, because as you can see, it ravels very easily. So now that we're done with the embroidery part of this project, we are going to finish off the edges of our cloth. The reason we do this is so that the cloth doesn't fray and start to disappear essentially. So to do that, we are going to sew around the edges. So that means that what we're doing is inserting our needle through one side of the cloth, going over the edge, and then inserting our needle through that same side. And that keeps the edge together, and we're doing this all the way across on all four sides of our piece of cloth. Of course, we want to do that close to the edge because that's what we're protecting, the edge. But when we are finished with doing that on all sides, you do want to tie a knot. And then what we're going to do is that close to the edge, we're going to do a very big running stitch through all of the edges of our cloth. This does need a knot at the end of the thread, and it needs to be close to the edge of your cloth here so that when you pull on that thread, it starts to like bunch together, sort of like a drawstring bag, and then keeps all those edges in the back. Then what you can do is you can hang this project, or you can do whatever it is that you want to do with it, but you know that it's not going to disintegrate on you. So with that, we are now officially done with the embroidery project. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and we want to see your pictures through Instagram and Facebook. So if you did do this project, send it to us. I'll put the links for our social medias down in the description. And of course, you can look on our calendar for all of the new crafts that we're going to be doing, as well as some new programs that are going to come out in September. So keep an eye out for that. All right. I hope to see you guys next time on the next Try Your Hand. Bye.